started. I know there are 3 people online, and we've got 1 person here in the classroom today, so we will work together. Since it's such a small group, things will go a lot faster if the 3 of you who are attending online, if you'll unmute when you're participating and talking out loud. So we'll start by just kind of going over some basic information you need to know about ELP and showing you where to find things on the Canvas course. You should have all received a notification today that you were invited to a Canvas course, and you just have to accept that invitation. This is what the home page for ELP will look like. This banner on any page will take you back to the home page. This Teams button is the link to the live Teams meeting, so you can click this from Canvas to get there. Schedule is not currently clickable. That'll be clickable later today. Submit your work takes you to assignments pages. Info is where you'll get information about ELP. Recordings of these video sessions will be hosted here. And then this is the link to information about Apex. So ELP is about English exam prep. There are a couple of different things. Some of it's done, a lot of it's done together here with us, but there are a few things you'll have to do on your own as well. None of them should take you super long. So let's start by looking at our info. This year, I will be your main teacher for ELP. Right now, the only people attending are my own students, although there are students from other classes who've been invited. They just didn't show up today, so we'll see about the future with them. Miss Rogers will also be in and out sometimes. She's currently teaching English 1, but has taught English 2, and she and I have done this together for several years. So when we have larger groups, she will be with us, and we'll split the groups into face-to-face in one session and online in a separate session during the group work time, and she'll be working with the face-to-face groups. It's going to happen face-to-face in my classroom. If we, for some reason, have so many people show up one day that we need more space to be safe, then we will move to the media center. Or you can attend on Teams. Either one is fine. You don't have to attend the same way every week. So if some weeks you want to come in person, some weeks you want to attend online, that's totally okay as long as you can join right at 4:30. If you successfully complete ELP, you get 5 points added to your 4th quarter grade. Successful completion means that you attend all required sessions and complete all assigned work. You don't get the extra credit if you don't meet the requirements. Basic rules are show up on time. If you are going to miss a session, like you can miss one without being in trouble, but you do need to let me know that you're going to miss. Watch the recording on your own, complete the activities we did during the session, and then submit any of that work. If you miss more than one session, you won't receive extra credit, so we do take attendance fees. Be an active participant, so that means taking notes, following instructions, participating in activities, asking and answering questions. If you log into the meeting but you're not participating online, then you will be marked absent, and that will keep you from being eligible for credit. So participation is required. All work has to be done as instructed. Don't plagiarize or cheat. There's no need for it because none of this counts for a grade. And we're going to do most of it together. But if you get caught plagiarizing, copying and pasting from the internet, anything like that, you will not receive extra credit. If you try it and it's incorrect, I might ask you to redo it or to correct your answers, but for the most part, we'll be doing it together, so that shouldn't be a problem. And if you decide you don't want to do this, you can be removed from the Canvas course. You just have to let me know. So those are the requirements. The independent practice will be done via Apex. And before you leave the session today, I'll provide you with your login information. This is the link to Apex. Your username is going to be GCS followed by your student number. And I'm going to give you a temporary password that you will use to change and create your own password. And then there are 4 units. And and there's one per week, so I've actually divided it up to pace you out so you don't have to try to do it all at one time. The modules will actually show you everything in order. Some things are currently not visible under student view just because they're not ready for you to access them yet. You'll get instructions on each of them that you need to mark it done after you have actually done that. So today we are looking at test-taking strategies, and we're going to specifically focus on a strategy for how to use outlining to take an online reading test, because those online reading tests can be kind of tough. So general test-taking strategies. We're going to start with this video about just some reminders of some basic good test-taking strategies. And then we'll talk about some strategies specifically for English.
Thanks for stopping by. This is 2-Minute Classroom, and today I'm going to give you 7 tips for multiple choice exams. And if you want to further develop your study and test-taking skills, I've linked some books I recommend and a study playlist in the description. Now on to the tips. We'll start with the basic ones and then move on to the more advanced tips. All of these tips are relevant. Tip number 1 is to read through the instructions carefully. I'm always shocked at how many students jump right into the test without reading the instructions. And maybe you're one of them. There is often valuable information in the instructions about how to take the test and what you are allowed to do, so read it first. After reading the instructions, you can move on to tip number 2, which is to answer the easy questions first. This is a solid tip for nearly every type of test. It provides an overview of the test and gives you several small victories to boost your confidence right at the beginning of the test. Tip number 3 is to answer the question in your mind before reading the answer options. Use a piece of paper or your hand to cover the answer options. You may have to get a little more creative if it's a digital test. Then, with the answers covered, read the question and formulate your best idea of the answer in your mind before looking at the answers. So why do this rather than just reading the options? Because you won't get confused by the answer choices and thinking 2 or 3 of the options sound like good answers. If one of the options is similar to the answer you came to in your head, then you can answer faster and with more confidence. Try it out. Tip number 4 is to read every answer option. Similar to the instructions, many students skip this step on at least a few questions, often to their demise. Because most multiple choice test questions want you to find the most correct answer, there may be multiple correct answers. So if you stop at the first one, you may not see the most correct one. Even if you think you found the answer, read them all. Tip number 5 is to use the process of elimination. When you come to a question that you don't know the answer to, you can increase your odds by eliminating answers you know to be incorrect. Physically cross them out if you can. If you can narrow it down to 2 or 3 answers, you'll increase your odds for guessing correctly from the remaining answer choices. I'll do a separate video about guessing strategies for multiple choice tests and link it below, because it's a separate video all by itself. And if you're finding these tips valuable, consider subscribing, because you'll likely find a lot more value from my future content. Tip number 6 is specifically for all of the above type questions. You don't actually have to know if all of the above answers are correct. You just need to know if more than one are correct. For example, if the question has 5 possible answers, the last of which is all of the above, and you know the first and third answers are correct, but are uncertain about the other 2, you can confidently answer all of the above. Tip number 7 is to answer every question. I was amazed as a teacher to see students not answer multiple choice questions. I understand that you may not know the answer, but you can certainly write or circle a random answer. And there can also be a lot of strategy to guessing, which I'll make a separate video on. The only time you don't want to guess is when you lose points for wrong answers. In my experience, the vast majority of tests award you 0 points for a wrong answer, but on certain tests, you'll lose points for answering incorrectly, so make sure you know the test before you guess. Now, watch this video on last-minute test-taking strategies that will work, and this video of mine which YouTube thinks that you'll find relevant. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.
All right, so that's just a quick review of some basic test-taking strategies that tend to be helpful on all multiple choice tests. So some basic things like reading the instructions. That's important. It's true. A lot of times students make mistakes on these tests because they didn't read everything that's on the page. There are going to be some weird question types sometimes on the exam, and those question types will give you instructions on exactly how to use them, but you have to read the instructions for that to be helpful. Can you see past these chairs already? Okay. about being able to physically cross out answers and all of that, which this test is given online, so you can't mark it out on your paper, but there are ways to actually eliminate the answers on the online program. So I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. Without blowing up the whole meeting. So this is going to take a moment to load. While it's loading, make sure you already have some paper and pencil out if you haven't already, because we're going to take notes in just a few minutes. All right, so I'm going to show you just what the test looks like. This is not the official actual test. These are just examples of what your selections will look like. So you'll have a passage on the left-hand side of the screen, which you can scroll up and down to access more of it. If you want to make it wider, you can drag this bar in the middle to change the size of the reading screen. You have some tools built in. We have the flag tool, which lets you mark a question with a question mark so you can come back to it at the end. We have this tool, which lets you eliminate answer choices. So if you decide A is definitely wrong, you can put the X over it. But if you say, oh, that's a mistake, I didn't mean to do that, you can just click it again to remove that. Click the tool again and turn it back off. You have a highlight tool that you can use to highlight parts of the text. You can use this to erase parts of the highlight. You can use this to erase all of the highlight. And you can select your answer by clicking the button. It's automatically going to save it. And then you'll move next. So you have these built-in tools that let you eliminate answer choices that you know are wrong, let you highlight things in the text. And you'll also see some question types that are different. So like this one, instead of it being multiple choice, it's a drag and drop question. So you would drag and drop the correct answer into that space. Your mind should be able to reset it and drag something different there instead. And some of them are going to be passages where it asks you to click on something within the passage, so you can click to select. So here, right, I've selected 2 responses, but that's because I didn't read the instructions at the top. Select the sentence from the paragraph below that supports the inference that the internet plays a role in promoting its school's reputation. Select only 1 response. I've selected 2, so this would be marked wrong. So I want to re-click these to take those back off and select only 1 of them. These are also drag and drop questions. So click one answer, drag and drop the answer into the open box under the paragraph. And then this one is going to actually substitute the word into the blank so that you can test it and see if it fits. So these are some common question types you'll see on the test. You'll see at least one of everything like this on the test. And you'll have, like I said, these tools that you can use to highlight things that you need to remember, erase highlights, and on those normal multiple choice questions, you have the answer elimination tool, which is really helpful flag a question, then when you look at the review page, it'll have a question mark on it, so that tells you you can go back and look at it again. So this is what the testing platform looks like. And on the day of the test, they're going to make us go through this tutorial with you. So you will have already seen it once, but you'll see it again then. There will be part of the tutorial that's going to talk about math and science classes that we're required to go through with you. They might let me skip it, but usually they make me go through that part. And if so, just know that you're not going to be taking your math and science tests online as far as I know. I mean, they may have changed that, but usually that's not normally just English. All right, so I am going to exit this. And we're going to switch over to talking about specific strategies for English tests. So along the lines of reading the instructions, the next important tip is to read the whole page. So sometimes on the passage, there'll be like italics at the beginning, like between the title and the start of the text. A lot of people skip those, right? But you shouldn't skip those because normally that's where you're getting your historical context or information about the author. And if it's on the page, they can ask a question about it. And so that is an important strategy for the EOC, but if you're planning to take AP next year, the AP exam does this all the time. It'll have questions that specifically ask you about stuff that was in the italics at the start of the passage or in the footnotes. So if there are footnotes on the page, read the footnotes. If there's a definition down at the bottom, read that definition. If they gave it to you, it's for a reason. You need to know it. The second thing you should do is notice the genre of the passage. So in general, this test, I think, has 7 passages on it, something like that. I think 4 of them are informational texts, usually about 4. There's usually at least 1 poem, sometimes 2, and then at least 1 piece of fiction, so some kind of short story. But sometimes it'll be 2 fiction and 1 poem. Sometimes it's 2 poems, 1 fiction. But noticing the genre, because different genres have different strategies. So with an informational text, we know our questions are going to ask about things like central ideas, supporting details, author's purpose, and author's point of view. So those are the things you should be paying attention to. You're also going to see different types of structure there. With fiction, we're going to have questions more about theme, characterization, details, setting details, and plot. Poetry is going to focus on figurative language, mood, and tone. And you might see some visual text. So these would be like charts, diagrams, or infographics. They've started adding these in recent years to see if you can infer information based on a graph. So there's usually maybe only 1 of these on the test, but you might see 1, and just don't be caught off guard by it. If the text is really, really long, try breaking it into chunks, because reading on a screen for a long period of time can be really overwhelming and exhausting, and you can forget what you were reading. So break it down, take it a paragraph or 2 at a time. At the end of each chunk, write a 1-sentence summary of what that section was about so that you can confirm your thinking. You don't have to do this, but if you find your attention drifting as you read, this is a good strategy. Dealing with unfamiliar words. So if you've been doing your MIMBing, you should be okay. Oh, Aaliyah, I saw your message. What's Alicia's last name? I'll add her. Is it Holland? Stewart. Okay. Okay, if you'll just text her, let her know I'm adding her, and then tell her to log into the Teams in just a minute. All right. She should be able to get in. Okay, so if you come across an unfamiliar word, if you've been doing MIMBing, you should see fewer unfamiliar words than what you would normally see, because MIMBing should be teaching you the same kinds of words that are high frequency for the test. But if you do come across an unfamiliar word, context clues, look at what's going on around it. A lot of times people, when they look at context clues, only look at the sentence the word is in. But on these tests, you might want to look one sentence before and one sentence after for clues as well. So expand your search to like a 3-sentence range for context clues. Try breaking the word into parts. So what's the prefix, what's the root, and what's the suffix? When you find the root of the word, determine what other words it's similar to that you might know the meaning of. So I just forgot my example. I'll come back to it when I think of it. And then considering the connotation, so go with kind of your gut feeling about it. Does the word seem positive or negative? What's the tone of the sentence and the sentences around it? And how might that influence your understanding of the word? And then for constructed responses, we're going to spend a lot of time in the next session on constructed responses, but there's a strategy for it. We call it ACE. It stands for answer, cite, explain. So answer all parts of the question, cite textual evidence, explain how your examples support your answer. Don't stress about spelling. Spelling's not graded on this. If you misspell a word, they don't care as long as they can tell what you were trying to say. Use good capitalization and punctuation to make it easy to read your answer, but they're not going to fail you if your grammar is bad. In fact, you can technically get away with answering this one in bullet points if you want to, as long as you have these 3 parts, but we recommend writing it in a paragraph form just to be sure that people know what you're talking about. If you need help getting started, you can try restating the answer, or restate the question in answer form. Use transition words to help guide your response. And these count for 20% of your overall score, so definitely don't skip them. A lot of students look at those and are like, there are only 5 of them, how much can they count? 5 of them count for 20% of the grade, so definitely do them. Each one makes up a pretty significant portion of that score. And you can get partial credit, so even if you're not 100% certain, you can try your best on it, and even if you don't get full credit, partial credit's better than nothing. And you get like 4 hours to take this exam. So the regular test time is 2.5 hours, and then everyone gets an hour and a half extra on top of that for the exam. So you have plenty of time to do these. So it's definitely worth your time to make an attempt. All right, so that's the information about strategies for taking tests. We're going to look now specifically at a strategy for outlining a text. So the reason we might outline a text is to help us keep track of information, because in the version of the test I showed you, you can only see one question at a time. So how often do you use the strategy of reading the questions first? Do you like that? Or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So the struggle, if you're reading the questions first, if you can only see one question at a time, is that it's hard to flip back and forth between the questions and the passage. So outlining is a way to have a quick reference in front of you for what's going on. So you get paper and pencil for the test, even though it's an online test, but you can have as much scratch paper as you want. So for a lot of students, outlining actually helps them to use the strategy they're already comfortable with. just by doing some note taking as they take the test. So we're going to actually practice it right now. So grab some paper and a pencil. You've already got paper and pencil, right? Those of you online, does everyone have paper and pencil? Go ahead and grab your paper and pencil. Have that out. While you do that, I'm going to hook up my document camera so that we can look at this together. Yeah. Okay. Trying to find the right combination of chords here. So, I feel like that's my life every day.
Now, I did up here because I'm going to test training for Saturday. So.
Oh, right.
Writing down now.
Okay, let's switch over to this. This is not going to be great. If it's easier to move up where you can see closer, that's fine. Or you can, my brain is tired. Or you can pull it up on Teams if you want to have it on the screen closer to you. They did this part. All right, sorry for the technical difficulties, guys. It's just taking me a second to get this to display in both places.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
where do we submit this when we're finished?
Which part? The practice that we're doing right now?
Yes.
On the assignment I was just showing you.
Okay.
I've only ever done the document camera with all online or all in person. Throws me off a little bit to do it this way, but I'll figure it out. All right, can you guys online see my notebook paper here or no? What we got?
What is it supposed to look like?
You should just see notebook paper.
I don't see anything.
Okay. That's frustrating. All right, so this is not going to work. All right, worst case scenario, if I can't get the document camera to work, I will type, and you will want to handwrite just because that's how you'll be able to do it on the exam, but I'll have the right chords for this next week to make this easier. All right. Okay, so below at the bottom of this page, we've got a copy of the released exam. So it's not going to look exactly like the original, but we can practice the same outlining procedure. So I'm just going to open a document for now. All right, so the strategy we use when outlining is we want to just take notes, and this doesn't need to be a formal outline like you would do for like a class essay or anything like that. This is more just a really casual outline that we would use to keep record of what we're looking for in each question. So this is a good strategy if you like to read the questions first. So what we'll do is we'll start by looking at each question, and we'll number and make notes on what that question is asking for. So question 1, according to the selection, why has the Big Bend been described as a geologist's paradise? So in your notes, what you would write down is question 1, so I would put Q1 for question 1. And then I want to look for key words in the question. Why has the Big Bend been described as a geologist's paradise? So I don't want to rewrite it perfectly. I will just put Big Bend equals geologist's paradise, and then why, right? Like, so I know now, I'll have that written on my paper in front of me, and then when I go back to read the passage, instead of having to split through all these questions, as I read, when I see something related to these words, I'm going to make a note on my paper what the text says about this, so that when I get back to this question after reading the passage, I know where to find the information. So then question 2, what is the effect of the metaphors in the sentence below from paragraph 2? So question 2, our key details are metaphors, effect, paragraph 2, and it's the sentence, not all field geologists, however, refer to the Big Bend as a paradise. For some, this land of twisted, tortured rock is a nightmare. Right, so that's the metaphor part, calling the land a nightmare. And it wants to know what the effect of that is in paragraph 2. So when I get to paragraph 2, I'm going to look at that sentence more carefully. So let's do the same thing. We're going to skip question 3 because it's not available here with question 4. All right, so what are the key words in question 4?
Structure.
Okay, structure. So Q4 is asking about structure. So take a moment and write these down in your outline, because you're just going to take a picture for those of you online of your outline to show that you've been following along, and upload this to this assignment. So I'll give you a moment to write down those first 3, and then we'll keep going. And just leave some space in between each one where you can write notes for yourself. So just, maybe skip a line. And if you'll just let me know when you've got your notes down and are ready to keep going.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. People online, just give me a thumbs up or raise your hand when you're good and ready to keep moving. Three. Four people are good and ready to go. Alright, so it looks like most people are ready to keep moving. I'm gonna keep moving. Anyone who needs more time, you can take a screenshot if you need to. And I'll come back to this page again in a second. Alright, so let's look at question 5. Alright, let's read the question. What are our key words? What's this question looking for? What is the significance of the selection structure?
Significance, structure.
Okay, significance and structure. The word significance means what?
I can play a key role in it.
Yeah, what role it plays, what its purpose or function is. Okay, so Q5. Now, if Q4 and Q5 are both about structure, then your answer to Q4 will help you answer Q5. So Q5, what was that? Significance of structure. All right. So question 6, how does the author connect ideas in this selection? So what's this question asking about?
How does the author connect?
Okay, so like what are the keywords here?
Connect ideas.
Connect ideas, all right. So Q7, which group of words from the selection conveys the author's attitude about this topic? So what are our key words in question 7?
Author's attitude.
Attitude. So first we have to determine what the author's attitude of the subject is, then we have to figure out which words fit that. So we can answer this as we read, and then it'll make picking the words more efficient. All right, question 8. How does the author achieve his purpose? So keyword here, purpose, and what was the other keyword?
Achieve.
Not achieve,
How.
how, right? All right, so my notes are very, very basic. These are not meant to replace looking at the questions. These are to help jog your memory as you read the passage. So now you have all 8 questions that relate to the passage in front of you at the same time, which makes it easier as you read to mark and highlight on the page what you need to read. So I'm going to give you guys online just a second to catch up. Give me a thumbs up when we're good.
So you can hop to different questions on the
Yeah, you can skip around, skip back and forth, and that's fine. And that means that, like, if you find the answer to question 6 in the first paragraph, you jump to question 6, you answer it, then you come back. But this way you know which question had that information in it. So instead of, like, having to reread every question every single time, you refer to the paper in front of you. It's like a quick guide. And that's what we use it for. It's just a time-saving thing. It seems like it takes more time to write it down, but it actually saves you a lot of time by the end of the test. Plus, having your hand moving can be really helpful to, like, combat the fatigue of looking at the screen the whole time. All right, so what we're going to do now Now that we have the 8 questions outlined, we're going to go back and we're going to read the text. You may want to just grab your laptop so you can read on your screen. And so as we read, we are going to look for the things in this list of questions. So I'll read the passage aloud, and as we come across things that relate to these questions, call out stop, and we'll pause and talk about it. So those of you online, just unmute and say stop when we come across something related to the question. Okay, geology field notes, Big Bend National Park, Texas. Park geology. Big Bend is a special place to study geology. The rocks are clearly exposed thanks to sparse vegetation and recent erosion. A remarkable array of geologic processes are displayed here, from volcanoes and landslides to fossils and flash floods. A land of constant change. That portion of the Earth's surface known as the Big Bend has often been described as a geologist's paradise. In part, this is due to the sparse vegetation of the region, which allows the various strata to be easily observed and studied. It is also due to the complex.
I think.
Did you say stop?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, which questions does this relate to?
Number 1.
Number 1. All right, so number 1. Big Bend, geologist's paradise, why? So let's examine paragraph 2. That portion of the Earth's surface is known as the Big Bend, has often been described as a geologist's paradise. In part, this is due to the sparse vegetation of the region, which allows the various strata to be easily observed and studied. So in your notes, right below question 1, jot down, why is it a geologist's paradise? What does this mean? Sparse vegetation. What is sparse?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. Okay, so there's not a lot of vegetation. Vegetation means what?
Plants.
Plants. Okay, not a lot of plants, which allows the various strata, so strata means like layers, to be easily observed and studied. So the rock is exposed. We can see the rock. Now, we know that's question 1. We can look at question 1 and go ahead and figure out the answer based on that information. So question 1, according to the selection, why has it been described as a geologist's paradise? A, because it contains rocks. B, because geologists vacation there. C, because sparse vegetation allows easy access to interesting strata. Or D, because there are many, many jobs for geologists there. What's the correct answer? C. C. Write it down. Okay, now we know question 2 also refers back to that same paragraph. So we're going to go back to that paragraph and look for why the land is a nightmare. What's the effect of the metaphor? All right, so scrolling back up. All right, so it is also due to the complex geologic history of the area, presenting a challenge to students and researchers from all over the world. Not all field geologists, however, refer to the Big Bend as a paradise. For some, this land of twisted, tortured rock is a nightmare.
Stop.
Okay, so that's where it is, and then we want to read a sentence or 2 past it so that we know what the context of that is. So the abundance, diversity, and complexity of visible rock outcrops is staggering, especially to first-time observers. From 500 million-year-old rocks at Persimmon Gap to modern-day wind-blown sand dunes at Boquillas Canyon, geologic formations in Big Bend demonstrate amazingly diverse depositional styles over a vast interval of time. Okay, so now let's look at question 2. It asks what the effect of the metaphor is. So A, they compare Big Bend to a contradictory dream world. B, they emphasize the allure and repulsiveness of the landscape. C, they explain how Big Bend is enthralling to many people. Or D, they express how interesting the landscape is to many people. So which ones can we automatically eliminate?
A.
Say again.
A.
A, you're saying A is the answer, or A is what we should eliminate?
What we should eliminate.
We should eliminate it? Why?
Because in the quote it says it's a twisted torture rock is a nightmare. And A says a contradictory dream world.
Okay. So is there a connection between nightmares and dreams? Or a connection between paradise and dreams? Are those connected ideas? Because this word dream here, I think that's what's giving me pause. I don't think I would eliminate this one right away. Right? I don't know if it's the answer, but I know that it's similar enough to the statement that I don't want to delete it yet. So I'm going to leave A. What about B? They emphasize the allure and repulsiveness of the landscape. Does that fit what's going on in this sentence in any way? Does this seem plausible? You don't think so? Okay, what does allure mean?
Like attraction.
Alluring light is, but
Someone just said it online. What was it?
The attraction to something.
Attraction. So allure is attraction. Repulsiveness is what?
do without thinking.
That's impulsiveness. To repulse is to repel. Both of these mean to push away, to disgust, to make people want to back away from. So allure and repulsiveness. So we've got those contradictory ideas. So A and B are really similar answers. One of these two is probably the right answer. Just to be sure, C, they explain how Big Bend is enthralling to many people. Enthralling means what?
Interesting, right?
Interesting. Okay, so does nightmare fit at all with the idea of something being interesting?
No.
No. So C is the one we're automatically going to take out. C is out. D, they express how interesting the landscape is to many people. Does that seem to fit this sentence? No. So we're going to take C and D out. So we've narrowed it down to A and B. One is comparing it to a contradictory dream world, and the other says they're emphasizing the allure and repulsiveness of the landscape. So both of these have to do with the idea of contradiction, which is what's happening in this sentence. We're contradicting the idea of it being a paradise by saying other people say it's a nightmare. So which makes more sense, A or B? Which one do we think is the stronger answer?
B.
Why B?
Because I see A and it says compare Big Bend to a contradictory world, but I feel like it's more like emphasizing that people see it as
So A is about what it is, and B is about how people feel about it. Is this sentence more about what the land is or what people think about it?
what people think.
Okay, so B is the better answer. Now, this is one of those things where this is a bad question because you can make a strong case for A. B is the answer they're looking for. A lot of people will put A. So this comes back to the whole, there's more than one right answer, so you have to pick the most right answer. And B is the most right. But if you get it narrowed down to two, and you cannot make an argument, a clear argument for one over the other, go with your gut, take a guess, you've got a 50-50 chance. Leaving it blank is just as bad as getting it wrong, so you might as well guess. All right, so let's keep going then. We're gonna go back up and continue reading. And when we come across another question, call stop and we'll stop again. All right, so picking up with paragraph 3. We were here. The abundance, diversity, and complexity of visible rock outcrops is staggering, especially to first-time observers. From 500 million year old Persimmon Gap to modern-day wind-blown sand dunes at Boquillas Canyon, geologic formations in Big Bend demonstrate amazingly diverse depositional styles over a vast interval of time. For most of us, time is measured by the passing of days, years, and generations. The concept of geologic time, however, is not so easily understood. Events that occurred 2 million, 26 million, or as many as 120 million years ago are, at best, difficult to comprehend. Since astronomers now place the age of the Earth at approximately 4.6 billion years, we should perhaps consider ourselves fortunate the oldest rocks found in the Big Bend are only about 500 million years old. Initial commentary on the geology of the Big Bend was provided by early day explorers and adventurers in the 1800s. Subsequent studies by numerous 20th century researchers enable us now to reasonably reconstruct the complex geologic history of Big Bend. For a period of at least 200 million years, ending some 300 million years ago in the Paleozoic era, a deep ocean trough extended from present-day Arkansas and Oklahoma into the Big Bend region of far west Texas. Sediments from highlands to the north accumulated in that trough to form layers of gravel, sand, and clay. With the passing of time, these layers became sandstone and shale beds. About 300 million years ago, these strata were squeezed upward by collision with a continent to the south to form the ancestral Wahita Mountains. Subsequent erosion over an interval of 160 million years left only the roots of those mountains visible. These remnants may be observed today in the Wahita Mountains of southeastern Oklahoma, in the immediate vicinity of Marathon, Texas, and in the Big Bend National Park near Persimmon Gap. A warm, shallow sea invaded the Big Bend during the Cretaceous period, some 135 million years ago, providing the setting for deposition of lime mud and the remains of sea-dwelling organisms such as clams and snails. Limestone layers formed from those shallow muds are now visible throughout much of the Big Bend. They comprise the dramatic walls of Santa Elena, Mariscal, and the Boquillas Canyons, the entire range of the Sierra de Caballo Muerto, Dead Horse Mountains, and the magnificent cliffs of the Sierra del Carmen in Coahuila, Mexico, towering above Rio Grande Village. Approximately 100 million years ago, the shallow Cretaceous Sea began a gradual retreat to its present location, the Gulf of Mexico. Sandstone and clay sediments that formed along the retreating shoreline are found in lowlands surrounding the Jesús Mountains. Shallow water strata of this episode contain the fossil remains of oysters, giant clams, ammonites, and a variety of fishes and marine reptiles. Nearshore deposits in Big Bend have yielded petrified wood, fossil turtles, and crocodiles, one almost 50 feet long. Deposits from further inland contain fossil remains of a variety of dinosaurs. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second. Let's look back at what our questions are asking for. The next couple of questions are about structure. So when the text asks about structure, what is it asking you to determine?
How the article is like structured.
Well, so what does structured mean, though? What's another word for it?
How the text is written.
Written. Really what it's asking for when you see structure, think organization, right? So what order is information presented? So at the beginning, we get an introduction that says it's a special place to study. Then we get an explanation that it's a geologist's paradise. So I'm just going to start making some notes here because this is one of those things where I'm going to have a hard time remembering this when I go to answer the question. So we have introduction paragraph. And then we have something that talks about why it's a geologist's paradise. Right, so that's paragraphs 1 and 2. Then paragraphs 3 and 4. What are these two paragraphs talking about? The past, so like the history or like the ancient history of the land. And it sort of gives it to you in like a timeline because you get like 200 million years and 4.6 billion years and in 1800. So it's giving you like the order in which things happen. And then in the next section, you learn about a warm, shallow sea invading, and then you get these bullet points. What are these bullet points telling us? Okay, so what other land features are part of it? So we get that information. Then it says, the shallow water strata of this episode contain the fossil remains of, and we list all of this stuff. The nearshore deposits have yielded, and so listing all of this stuff. So this section is all about what? Yeah, so fossils, right? Fossils found there. All right, and then let's see. I think this is where I left off. Deposits from further inland contain fossil remains of a variety of dinosaurs, so we're still talking about fossils. Perhaps the most famous of Big Ben's fossil treasures from this period is the giant flying reptile Quetzalcoatlus northropi with a wingspan over 35 feet. A replica of the bones of one wing is now on exhibit at the Panther Junction Visitor Center. Near the end of the Cretaceous period, a west to east compression of the Earth's crust marks the beginning of the second major mountain building period in Big Bend. This compression, which began in Canada, moved gradually southward, uplifting and folding ancient sediments to form the Rocky Mountains. So we've stopped talking about fossils. Now what are we talking about? Mountains. So we're back to changes and mountain ranges that are created through the movement of the plates. In Big Bend National Park, Marisval Mountain represents the southernmost extension of the Rockies in the United States. Broad uplift punctuated by upward folding exposed both the erosion-resistant lower Cretaceous limestones and the less resistant overlying sandstones and clays to the onslaught of erosion. Limestone cliffs throughout the region continue to be eroded today. Most of the more easily removed sandstone and clay is gone from the mountains. For almost 10 million years after uplift ended, non-marine sediments of the Tertiary period constitute the only record of events in the Big Bend. Dinosaurs have long been gone from the land, their places taken by a proliferation of mammals, many of whose remains have been found in Big Bend: horses, rhinos, camels, and rodents, as well as fossils of the plants on which they have thrived. All right, so we're back to talking more about fossils again. All was not to remain quiet for long. near the present northwest boundary of Big Bend National Park. The first of a long series of volcanic eruptions occurred approximately 42 million years ago. Upwelling magma lifted the mass now known as the Christmas Mountains, fracturing and weakening overlying strata, allowing massive outpourings of lava to spread across the land. The oldest volcanic rocks in Big Bend owe their origins to this eruptive cycle. So the next section is talking about, what are we talking about now? Okay, so now we got volcanoes. Between roughly 38 and 32 million years ago, Big Bend itself hosted a series of volcanic eruptions. Initial activity in this cycle centered on the Sierra Quemada, below the present south rim of the Jesus Mountains. Subsequent volcanic activity at Pine Canyon, Burro Mesa, near Castellon, and elsewhere in the park is responsible for the brightly colored volcanic ash and lava layers of the lower elevations and for most of the mass of the Jesus Mountains. Volcanic activity was not continuous during these eruptive cycles. Periods of hundreds of thousands or perhaps millions of years passed between eruptions. During the quiet interludes, the forces of erosion carved new landscapes, many of which were destined to be buried under layers of ash and lava from later eruptions. Life returned to the land only to be displaced by future eruptions. Elsewhere in the Big Bend, rising magma sometimes failed to reach the surface. Instead, it spread within existing layers of rock, uplifting and fracturing overlying strata. Once the magma cooled and crystallized, it formed solid masses of erosion-resistant, intrusive igneous rock, which have now been exposed by erosion of the overlying material. Maverick Mountain, the Grapevine Hills, Nugent Mountain, and Pulliam Ridge are among many examples in Big Bend of such frozen magma chambers. Beginning some 26 million years ago, stresses generated along the west coast of North America resulted in stretching of the Earth's crust as far east as Big Bend. As a result of these tensional forces, fracture zones developed, which over time allowed large bodies of rock to slide downward along active faults. The central mass of Big Bend National Park, including the Jesus Mountains from Sierra del Carmen to the east of the Mesa de Anguilla to the west, comprises such a block of rocks dropped downward by faulting. Direct evidence of this faulting is readily observed at the tunnel near Rio Grande Village. There, the limestone layer through which the tunnel passes is the same layer that forms the skyline of the Sierra del Carmen to the east, dropped down over 4,800 feet by faulting. To the west, at the mouth of Santa Elena Canyon, the highest elevation rises 1,500 feet above the river, while at the parking area, the same layer lies some 1,500 feet below the surface. Displacement along these faults did not occur in a single event, rather in a series of lesser episodes of faulting punctuated by earthquakes. The 1995 magnitude 5.6 earthquake near Marathon, Texas, 70 miles north of Panther Junction, indicates that the responsible stresses are still active. We have ... so that means they're going to skip ahead to the end of the passage. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said, "There is nothing permanent except change." This phrase could have been directed to the Big Bend, where geologic processes have been constantly changing the land for over 500 million years. Each time you return to Big Bend National Park, it will be different, for with every passing day, the land is indeed changing. So this last paragraph, what's this last paragraph doing? How does this relate to everything that came before it?
It sums up everything that we just read.
Right, it sums it all up, and the summary of everything we just read is what? Like, what's the one central idea here?
Big Bend is very attracting more people.
Well, what's the word that keeps being repeated in this last?
Big changing.
Yeah, change or changing. All right. So what now? Oh, well, that.
theory, it should work for. All right.
It should last for another 15 minutes, which should be okay. All right, so structure, we've summarized that structure. Let's now look at the question 4 about structure. How does the author structure the text? So we want to compare the list of structures to what we have noted as we read. So we can start by looking at what the first thing is in the list. A and B both start with general overview. C starts with chronological history by area, and D starts with the overall history of area. So which ones do we want to eliminate? Which ones don't match up with these first two things? So the first thing is the introduction of what Big Bend is and why it's a geologist's paradise. Which of these answer choices does not fit there?
C and D.
Okay, so we'll take C and D out. We're going to focus on A and B. Okay, so the next thing in A is geographic placement. The next thing in B is chronological history. Which of those fits what we described in the list?
B.
B fits chronological history. Okay, so then let's then check and make sure everything else in the list also falls along that same path. So the next thing would be geographic highlights. Okay, so where it's located, right? Other landmarks. Volcanic activity. Right, we've got that. Mountain ranges, tectonic changes, volcanoes. Faults and earthquakes. So that all fits together. So B is your best answer. So if you were trying to do this without taking notes as you read, you would have to go back and check every single one of these answers. But because we took those notes, we can quickly eliminate things and keep moving. So now 4, what's the significance of the selection structure? So A, it clarifies the existing natural boundaries of the area. B, it highlights the types of living creatures that existed in the area. C, it emphasizes the constant geological changes that have shaped the area. Or D, it provides the reader with an inside look at how geological maps are created. Which answer is right?
I
Why
think
is it C?
C.
Yeah, C is right. Tell me why.
Because it mostly talks about the changes in the fossils found in volcanoes.
And which paragraph could we refer back to as evidence of why this whole article is about change?
I mean, you can do the last one.
Yeah, that last paragraph where he talks about, like, he sums up, that's the central idea. This place is always changing. C, this emphasizes the constant geological changes. So it's talking about the changing plant and animal life, the changing volcanic activity, the changing earthquakes, and how the land is moving. And so all of that, everything in the structure is emphasizing geological change. So C is the answer to 5. 6, how does the author connect ideas in the selection? A, by describing geologic time periods. B, by explaining the effects of volcanoes. C, by comparing fossil remains to volcanic ash. Or D, by giving descriptive geologic details about the topic. Which of these is the right answer?
D.
Why is it D?
Because I guess in the paragraph it was talking there all the history, and then it was talking about how the different places.
So we can immediately eliminate B and C because those are not connecting ideas across different parts of the text, right? Volcanoes are just in one section. fossil remains are only in one section and they're not compared to volcanic ash. So B and C we're automatically going to mark out. That leaves us with A and D. A is describing geologic time period. So even though the author is describing what's happening during different geologic time periods, they're not describing what those time periods are. So A is not a very good answer. But D, the author throughout the entire text from beginning to end is giving descriptive geologic details about Big Bend. So D is your answer for 6. 7, which group of words from the selection conveys the author's attitude about the topic? So what would you say, before we even look at the words, what would you say is the attitude about the topic? How does the author feel about Big Bend?
Wait, what was 6?
So 6 was D, that the author uses geologic details about the topic to connect ideas from the beginning to the end.
Okay.
All right. So 7, what would you say the author's attitude about Big Bend is?
It's interesting because it always changes.
Okay. So interested, fascinated, all that. So let's look at our groups of words and see which of these groups of words seems most similar to that attitude. So A, remarkable, amazing, dramatic, magnificent. Is that a contender or no? Could that possibly be it?
I think it's possible.
Possible. Okay, so we'll keep it. B, paradise, fortune, proliferation, thrived. Do these words seem like they reflect an attitude or no?
I don't think.
No. Okay, so let's take B out. C, complex, challenge, staggering, nightmare.
No.
Okay. Do they reflect an attitude at all?
Yes.
Yes.
Just like a negative one.
Okay, it's 2 negatives, so we want to take it out. D, invaded, retreating, uplifted, erupted. Do these convey an attitude?
No. Well, in a way, I guess. Well, no.
Do the words feel like they even fit together?
Mm-mm.
No. So A is the only one that really is cohesive, where all of the words fit together and relate to that idea of like it being an interesting or fascinating place. So A is your answer for 7. All right, and then for 8, how does the author achieve his purpose? So first of all, what is the author's purpose in this passage? What does the author want us to know or do?
To inform us about how things change.
Okay, so wants us to be informed about how the land is changing. So how is the author achieving that? A, using descriptive phrases to explain difficult ideas. B, by using only formal scientific language to list data. C, by using bulleted phrases to clarify ideas. Or D, by using quotes from famous people to support facts. So we can use process of elimination here. Which ones will we eliminate?
D.
Okay, so we're going to eliminate D and B. He's not only listing data, and he's not using terribly scientific language, and he's not using quotes from famous people other than right at the very end. All right, so we know he's using descriptive phrases, and we know he's using bulleted phrases to clarify ideas. Which of these seems more helpful for the author's purpose of helping us understand the change? A, descriptive phrases to explain difficult ideas. Okay. Why A and not C?
Well, I think C, I think that was only for like one like area because it was mostly covering the fossils found over there, and I don't think it's the overall.
Good logic. C is not the answer because it's only limited to one section, which does not support the overall purpose. It just supports one section. But A is used throughout, so A is the answer to 8. All right. So take a picture of those notes where you've been writing down answers and jotting down notes as we read, and you're just going to submit that on Canvas. Submit it to this assignment right here. You'll just click Start Assignment, upload your file. If you've got the Canvas app on your phone, that's the easiest way to do it. And I will grade it. Now, there are a couple of people here who are not in the Canvas class yet. If you're not in the Canvas class yet, will you post in the chat for me so I can add you real quick? Okay. What was 8? What was 8? We just talked about A being the best one for 8.
A. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Olivia. We actually have 2 Olivias in this group. Only one is here today, but we will have 2. So I will do my best to try to make sure I call on the right one. All right, so who are my people who are not in the Canvas group yet?
I just joined like a couple of minutes ago.
Okay. Alicia, had I added you to Canvas yet?
No.
All right, I'm going to add you right now. You're going to get a pop-up on your Canvas dashboard, and that's where you'll actually be able to access this assignment that's on the shared screen so that you can submit your work for today too.
Okay, thank you.
And then we've only got about 5 minutes left. So the last thing I need to do is give everyone their, oh, my brain. Okay. I need to give everyone their Apex access so that you guys can do the independent practice this week. Alicia, will you post your student ID number in the chat for me? Actually, never mind. I've got it.
Yeah, I can't access the chat.
Okay, I'll fix that too. I'm going to add you as a member of the team so that you can access everything from now on.
Okay, thank you.
So check that Canvas dashboard and you should see an invitation to join. And then let's go to Apex. I've got everyone.
Are you at the show?
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the list of login information in the chat
Did you get my text?
and let you guys
Is he on his way?
get your information directly from there.
Okay, thank you.
This is a temporary password, so as soon as you get that password, I want you to go ahead and log in to this website, apexbs.com. That's in the chat. And then use the username and password that's in that document I just dropped in the chat. As you can read, I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Hello? Yeah, where you at right now? Oh, I was going to see if you could pick me up at the school.
Okay, so get your login info from that document that I just dropped in the chat, and then Audrey, you can just write yours down from here. It's gonna, your username for most of you is GCS followed by your student number. Alexis, I think yours is different just because you came from a different district partway through the semester. And then that's a temporary password. The first time you log in, it's gonna ask you to make your own original password. And then you get what you need from here already?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna show you the website really quick, just what the unit's gonna look like. Switch back over to the right thing. Yours is gonna look different. I have a lot more stuff here because this is the teacher side of things. So when you launch the tutorial, it's gonna look like this. There are only 4 units. You do 1 a week for the month of May. You'll start with the first one, which is reading strategies. It'll start you with a pretest. I would say do the pretest. It'll let you skip it, but you should do it because if you do the pretest and you get a 100% on any of these question types, it lets you skip the lesson. So doing well on the pretest saves you time in the long run. After you take the pretest for anything you did not test out of, so if you got a 100%, it'll say test it out right here. For anything you didn't test out of, you'll do that lesson. So the Learn It is guided notes, and you'll do that. Click through, click on things to see what's going on. And then once you finish that, do the Test It, which will just be short, really, really short checks on that skill. Once you've taken all 4 lesson tests, a post-test is gonna open up and you'll be able to complete the unit. So should not take you more than about 30 minutes to do, but if you're really struggling, it might take you longer, but for most people, this should only take about 30 minutes to get through all 4 of them. Okay, so that's what you're doing independently. I've pasted out and requested that you do 1 per week for the month of May. If you do it late, it's not gonna hurt you, but if you prefer, it'll be hard to finish. Did my iPad just died? Is that what that noise was?
It's on 5%.
Okay, all right, so it's 6 o'clock. Does anyone have any questions before we go? All right, make sure you submit the practice from today that we just did together, and then make sure that you work on the Apex independently this week. And we will meet again next Wednesday at 4:30. All right, if you have no questions, then you are free to go. You're right here yet?
No, not yet. They're on their way.
All right. Bye, Olivia. Have a great day.
It's so cold up front.